do is I would get somebody in an inflatable T-Rex costume to run down a racetrack next to a drag car and see if they can win. And at the end of it, I'd say, if you have any questions, send me a DM. All right, Tim, over to you.
Next question.
Next question. We nailed that. We nailed that one.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to an interactive racing game, which in our case, would be Race Day Rampage, the first thing I would look at is like, if you're doing something interactive, like how can you get your community involved with that, first of all? And how can you incorporate multiple people? Because like if you try and like just force everything onto yourself and just, I need to pump out this content, and like do this thing, but don't like rely on your community to be a part of it, then it's all about you, which if you're doing something interactive, then it's about the community aspect. So find ways to utilize your community, whether that's like in my case, what I've done is I've run endurance tracks. So I run challenge tracks that take a certain amount of skill and time and effort to beat, and that's something that the community comes and tries to beat as a collective, and it's a big celebration whenever we actually complete that task. There's, and we get to build a lot of hype from that as well. Like, here's all the failed attempts that we had from it. Here's how close we got a couple times. Here was an amazing thing that happened during this. So there's like a lot of things from just that one concept that you could create to build up a story to make something amazing in the end. Yes. There's a number of other ways that you could go about doing that. Like you could run tournaments, post highlights of the tournament, do leaderboards, like, do highlight reel of the person that won the tournament and stuff. So there's a number of like those are the concepts that you could come up with and start building it out. And then once you have all those clips, then you can just, then that's when you get into the editing phase and you start splicing them together. But, having the concept of like the story that you want to build out is the first step in how you would like, not just, I don't think you would make one video of an interactive racing game. I think you would make a number of them and make as much as you can.
There you go. That's good. What triggers the need for more knowledge? I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. Need to win. How does the person look for this more knowledge? Do they look online? Is it a YouTube thing? Is it the written rule book?
By the way, the last place I want to go to get info is a video.
Really? That's like the first place I like to go.
I know. It takes too many steps by M68. That's fair.
I mean, and that's also a difference just in like, it might be just be a generational difference. We got to see YouTube like as, I'm a teenager and, the iPod comes out. So that's, it's definitely just a different, we like grew up with tech. What's crazy too is we've seen the birth and subsequent like small deaths and rebirths of esports in our lifetime. And it's kind of cool to have like come along for that ride. Like looking back at Counter-Strike 1.6, right? I'm playing Counter-Strike 1.6 and being like, wait, somebody's like, yo, did you see the match? I'm like, what match are you talking? And they're like, yeah, Dignitas versus, whoever, one of these older orgs, Virtus Pro. And I'm like, and so I go there and I'm like, these guys are really good at this game. Wait, you can be a professional gamer? Like that's a thing? Like I remember that it's just wild. It's wild to think it's wild to think about this. This is a good question. What is the next thing? Madden. So something we talk about in the podcast that I bring up is the difference between the esports as popularized and esports as actual sports, FIFA, NBA 2K, NHL, right? NHL, actually, the NHL hockey tournament for esports has been advertised consistently through Twitch/Amazon during the NHL playoffs, which is really, really cool. So it's like, check out all these, all the pros, and they're sitting there, like playing against each other, which is really, really cool. I think that's pretty rad. But when Ben was talking, and I got to say, I kind of agree. He doesn't think that just because you got League of Legends, you got Fortnite, you got Counter-Strike, you have all these other like huge IPs that bring all the attention. The actual like sports side of esports is pretty locked in. Like it's actually doing really well because it's using sports as like the guideline of how to produce these businesses. Like sports look at their teams as brands as well as competitors. And esports, the sports side of esports is doing the same thing. Not to mention they're all 1v1. So that's something that it was like, oh, you're right. Like it's always 1v1. So that allows people to brand specific individuals that might be a little bit easier to brand and create stories around than say 5 people together who all have specific roles on a team.
Yeah, I actually like the lead into this question that G-Barb's just put in chat. How do you think the inclusion of esports in the Olympics will impact the gaming community overall? I think it is the catalyst for what will put esports permanently on the map.
Really?
I think I'm gonna make that bold of a claim and say that like that's the push that esports needs to like get over the stigma hump of like the generational aspect of people saying, I don't understand esports, doesn't make sense to me, they're just sitting in front of a computer, they're not doing anything worthwhile or whatever. I think the time when it gets over that hump is when the Olympics happen, because then that's when it becomes recognized as like a serious endeavor, a serious sport. And especially when we already know the fan base for esports, at least among our generation and somewhat a little bit younger, is already thriving really well, especially in the in places like China and Korea and Japan, and somewhat Japan as well. Like they have, especially with League of Legends, like it's absolutely enormous over there. So you bring that to something like the Olympics, where there's a humongous following for it already. Now you get it on a different type of global scale. It's already on a global scale, but in the sense that you have like all types of people from all different walks of life tuning in and joining in. Like I think that's what will eventually break the barrier.
Okay, this is a really good topic, because I want to go into, so one, I agree. I think that seeing an international governing body give the nod to it, like not in a way that this is something that's come from video games, right? Because there are international conglomerates that produce video game competitions that have insane prize pools and get attention, but this is like above that. This is something that hasn't typically done video games and is now saying, okay, we'll give a nod to this idea. However, we have a catch, Tim. Yeah. Do you know what the catch is?
What's the catch?
The choice of games.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. The Olympics. The Olympics have selected these are the games. Okay, I brought it up because this is something I remember thinking, like, what did they choose for this? Here are the list of games that the Olympics has decided to say, okay, our first Olympics esports competition, the Olympic Esports Series in 2023 in the summer. Here's your lineup. Gran Turismo.
Okay.
Just Dance. Chess.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does, right?
Chess makes sense.
Indoor cycling trainer Zwift.
Huh?
Yep. Virtual. Okay, and then virtual regatta. It's a sailing simulator. Virtual taekwondo. Tennis Clash, which is a mobile game.
I'm sensing a theme.
WBSCE Baseball Power Pros. That's the actual name of the game. Like I actually looked up this game, and it's pretty interactive, and it's pretty cool how like nuanced you can get. But anyway, and Tic Tac Bow, the mobile arcade game. So what are we noticing? What we're noticing is there's not League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Fortnite, Overwatch, Street Fighter, Rocket League, Dota. What they're doing with this is taking the first step into the esports area. They're saying we want it to still be sports.
Yeah,
we want it to still be sports.
They're 100% being safe with it. At least in their mind, they're being safe with it.
Right. And I mean, and I understand that. I actually do. Like, I completely get it. As far as
that's
the
why
competition,
it's like after the third one you said, I was like, okay, I see what they're doing. Like, it makes sense.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like what I am curious about, like, and once again, this is just the first go, and I'm not trying to pick on them for their selections because we have to remember something. The market, the Eastern market, is way bigger than the Western market. Like as far as mobile activity especially, they destroy Western markets. So as far as like creating something like this, they're probably looking at the most popular simulated, competitive, skill-based sports simulators and saying, okay, what are they? So what I would be curious about is when they are able to move, maybe, what do you think? Do you think like next year, maybe they bring in NBA 2K, FIFA, Madden, PGA Tour, like they start bringing in more of these.
I honestly think that those are going to come later than a couple other games. Like I would imagine Rocket League comes before that. And the reason I say is because those games already have, well, most of them, not all of them, but those games already have their Olympic counterpart in IRL. And so
that's fair.
When you combine those two, it's just like it doesn't feel like it adds as much to it. That's just my assumption. But when you add something like Rocket League, like sure, it's soccer, but it's a very different spin on it. Where it has like Madden, NBA 2K, and like stuff. There's nothing really fundamentally different on how the game functions. Like for the most part, like the actual function of the game is relatively similar to how you play in real life. Like you're humans playing something,
right?
And so
it's a good point. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah. Now chess, on the other hand, chess makes a lot of sense. And Eddie actually makes a good point in chat, like get Magnus Carlsen in the room, like that makes sense. But chess has been something that in reality has kind of been all over the world since its inception. Like people would tune into the radio just to hear the chess match going on, especially with in the, I don't know if you remember, in the 1972 was Boris Spassky and Robert Fischer, Bobby Fischer, like that whole tournament, like everybody was all about that, and that was had a lot of drama in it too. But yeah, I think something we're talking about, like with chess, something that we need to keep in mind is I don't know what the formats are. Like I don't know if maybe that's been out there or not. But this is going to sound a little ridiculous, but this is the culture we live in. We are trying to min-max the nuance of competition. So can you move a chess piece digitally faster than you can physically? The answer is yes. So if we want to get to the highest level of fastest human processing on making moves in like a bullet chess tournament, you make it digital. It's a digital competition. Yep. It's not at the board. And so if they're so for me, like if it's a just a normal, like quote unquote normal game of chess, right? Like I don't know what it is. Hour timer, you get 1 minute per move added, whatever it ends up being. Like we could maybe have a discussion about whether we should be digitalizing that. But if we do look at the faster gameplay, like bullet blitz formats that are very, very popular, you go digital. So I think that's probably why they're saying like, okay, we're going to bring chess into this because we can do these fast formats. And it's almost like a buckle up thing. Like it's almost like this crazy thing where it's like, all right, here we go. Here, going to sit down. Here's Magnus and ready to go. And you're trying to like cast it. Like, can you imagine commentating like it's like, dude, like it's just like going so fast. So anyway, that's like where my brain goes with like chess digitally. Yeah. Imagine chess boxing in the
Bro,
Olympics.
bring it. Oh. Do you know how streaming does or could fit into the career of an esports professional? Any good examples out there? Question from G Barbs. You want to take that first? I got some thoughts, but I'll let you take first swing.
I have a couple thoughts that aren't fully formulated, but I know there's been, like, I know of a couple Rocket League ones that come up the top of my mind pretty quickly. Like, you have people like Sizz and Rizzo that were former pros, but have kind of surpassed
Squishy Muffins.
Their prime. Yeah, and Squishy is another one. Justin, I mean, Squishy and Justin are still playing, but you can tell they're starting to get to that point where they're getting pretty close to wrapping up, I think, their
right.
professional career. But they have a large enough following that there's two ways that pros kind of approach being content creators. So some of them, the ones that are really good at a very particular thing, started making content during their pro scene, but did it in a way that didn't inhibit them from being professionals in their area. The first example I think of is Jazer. He was like the freestyle master, the original freestyle master. So he made a bunch of videos on that. But he's
just to get a little bit of context to what Tim is saying, freestyling in Rocket League is when you are doing things that are above and beyond what you need to do just because you're good at the game and you can do it. It's like
you basically make something look really cool. That's what the point is. So he was the pioneer of that. So he made a bunch of content on that, but he was still playing on a professional team. Right. But once that time ran out, he still had that content that he would be able to put out. That he just was then more focused on after he played professionally. And so you see people still doing that on a regular basis. Like when Squishy's done, like Squishy innovated a lot of mechanics that we see in Rocket League right now. Right. So he became popularized from that. So he's, riding that train as well. And I could give a bunch more examples, but I think you get the point. I think what you do in the professional space is find something that you can contribute to people. And this kind of goes back to a lot of our podcast episodes that we've already spoken about.
Right.
But when you find the value that you can bring to people, then that makes your content creation a lot easier to generate. Because you're already really good at something, and if you can provide value to somebody that has no experience in something, even if you've only been doing it for 6 months, like you still have something you can contribute to that person.
Yes.
And so just imagine if you've been playing professionally for so long, like you have that much more value you can contribute to people.
Yeah, it's great. What I will add is the idea of, I have two examples that are great examples for what this transition point looks like for people who used to be a professional athlete. A pro, like esports, an esports athlete, elite. Wow. Okay. Anyway, mind blown. So you have Tyler One, right? Yep. Tyler One, LOL. Known for, his rage. This is a League of Legends player who is just known for being way over the top. Just kind of, really, really just kind of embracing the memery of being really upset about things, but at the same time actually being somebody who's upset and has like broken things on camera and stuff like that. But he was somebody who was a League of Legends, a League of Legends professional, and then he just started streaming and blew up. He was one of the first ones to stream really consistently. That rage made people watch him because people are like, I want to see the next time he rages, and then that just like generated. The other two examples that are pretty big examples. Number one, XQC used to be a tank for Overwatch. This is something we talked about a little bit in the podcast episode as well, but XQC is a great example. Esports pro, did a little bit of streaming, but not too much, but then started to stream a lot more, completely quit doing professional esports, is now the biggest streamer on Twitch. The idea here, Shroud is the other one that I was going to bring up. Shroud. Counter-Strike professional, really had a very short professional career. It's kind of crazy. One of the best, mechanical accuracy, like FPS players in the entire world, if not the top, if not like one of the best, and now just a full-time streamer who, you know, one of the few who was in the Mixer deals of moving people back and forth and them trying to get Mixer to work. All that to say, the idea with content creation, just to kind of like sum up the answer so we can move on to maybe some other questions. The idea with this esports right now is you need to be a professional player for an esports organization. You also have to have an online presence, whatever that looks like. That's starting to be a requirement.
It comes with the territory, yeah.
Exactly. Like you need to, hey, okay, so you need to stream twice a week. That didn't used to be the case. It's like, I'm really good at the game, I just want to practice and be good. You also need to stream so that we have brand presence. Like what we're seeing is we're turning professional gamers into content creators as well. So that you can so that brands, aka teams or orgs, can kind of double dip the representation. But there are so many examples. Like I think at this point you can go to YouTube and you can probably find a YouTube channel for every single professional athlete in the esports realm out there. Just like doodle-doo, and they have a channel that's doing quite well with an editor who's putting out content. That's just the new norm. Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but we said a lot of things.
Yeah, we said a lot of words, and hopefully that was somewhat cohesive.
Yeah, esports isn't going anywhere. I do want to bring up too. This is something I have followed the esports scene so closely, like for so long, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I've been watching all these things for such a long time. If we look at the early, I even forget what it's called. What was the early Counter-Strike? It wasn't MLG. Early Counter-Strike, like Pro League.
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
It was like they got it was televised. It was literally on ESPN. Was it just like the E League or something? I can't remember, but
there's E League, there's DreamHack, there's.
Gosh, I wish I could remember. If anybody knows, please.
Put it in the chat. If anybody
please put it in the chat.
What I'm talking about, or in the comments.
Yeah, that too.
If we don't get an answer here,
this is early 2000s. And to this point, we have never seen an esports live draft of players. And that's what they did. They mimicked the NFL draft. And they said, okay, here's all these players. They had them walk up and gave them a jersey with their name on the back. And then they put them in a room and sat them across from each other in a 5v5 format in Counter-Strike so they could yell at each other if they got a good shot. Like they could actually correspond and interact, which resulted, you have some players who are like just total trash talkers. And so everybody loves to hate them. And you have people who are just really good at the game and they're sitting there. And it was international. They had teams, they brought over teams like Navi and Virtus Pro and all these teams. There was... Oh, geez. I remember all the old names of like all these pro gamers at that time. It tanked. That's the short story. It tanked because it was before its time. The people were not ready to consume that
definitely
content.
Before its time. Like, imagine doing that now. That would be huge. Because, like, you think about the area that we're in right. Like, you think early 2000s. I think the internet was still very much in its infancy. Very much in its infancy when it comes to live gaming, like multiplayer gaming. Like it existed, but there was a limited amount of people that had access to internet good enough to be able to do it. Now I still always say that like internet's still way behind where it should be, but we are in a place now that we can compete with people at least nationally. Relatively easily.
Right.
Online, when you get to a global scale, I don't think we're quite at that point yet, but we will be.
Okay, this brings up an interesting thought that just kind of popped into my head here. Also, if you have more questions or anything, drop them in the chat, and we'll start going through them. If you have questions about esports, content creation, anything relating to the podcast, feel free to hook it up. The idea here is that this is something we also talk about in the episode. And this is the number one thing, in my opinion. And we talk, once again, it's in the episode. If you want like more depth on it, feel free to ask a question about it. But the translation of mainstream understanding of what is happening in a video game to consuming the content as entertainment. So we have like the reason that didn't work, that the Counter-Strike Pro League of the early 2000s televised on ESPN didn't work, is because if like I turned it on with my dad and he was like, this is not interesting to me at all. And I said, why? And he said, I have no idea what's going on. There's no, and so what they tried to do, they tried to have the commentators and broadcasting crew. It was clearly they had a lot of educational stuff. Like, here's the deal. Here's how this works. This team is over here. This team's over here. Here are the bomb sites. So they're trying to attack. This team's trying to defend. But you can't translate the simple goal into the nuance of holding angles and where you have your crosshair and shoulder peeking and, you know, flashbang smoke setups and all these different things without actually playing the game and getting an understanding the general context of how gameplay works in video games, where you can turn on a soccer match and everybody knows what's going on. Everybody has the understanding of what is good and bad in a sport that they've been saturated with, whether they play it or not. So this is the big point with esports and getting it into the mainstream. And this is why I don't think the Olympics is making a bad decision. They're saying people can understand with Tic-Tac-Bow, the mobile archery game, that you are trying to hit the target and do better than the other person. And it's something that everybody already is saturated in. Then somehow we need to slowly work in these other things. And that's why I kind of think that, like, you know, FIFA or, you know, NBA 2K or some of these other games might be the first ones to also be included, because it's obvious what's happening to the casual viewer. Yeah, it would be interesting if they went with those games first. I mean, like, you know, anybody in the world can tune in and see it. I think and like understand what's going on, but like, obviously my biggest reservation with that would be like, well, why would somebody who likes basketball, likes watching real basketball, tune into NBA 2K? Right. So as opposed to like that's a good point. At the very least, though, we can say that they understand what's going on. They would understand it. Yes. So there is that. So I think there needs to be like a bigger, there needs to be something more to the draw of this real sports games before they can fully be integrated, and I'm sure that's something they're working on right now. They just haven't gotten to that point yet. Because, you know, if I showed like any of these games to my wife and stuff, she would be completely uninterested, you know. But that's just like. Again, I think it goes back to what the original point, where everything about esports and the individuals participating in esports is the branding. Like, how do you brand the esports? How do you brand esports in a way that the active esports watcher, for lack of a better term, how do you get them interested? And how do you brand it in such a way that it's attractive for them to watch, or at least be somewhat invested in what's going on? So, you know, I've seen in some sports competitions where you don't normally see the individuals. So like, let's say there's a weightlifting competition or whatever that's being televised. Sometimes they'll have like a little behind the scenes documentary and stuff that's like a 5 to 10 minute piece that talks about their story, how they got into the weightlifting and stuff. And then you feel a lot more invested in what they're actually doing, as opposed to like just turning on the channel and then, okay, this person's going to lift 500 pounds and stuff. And it's like, but you don't know anything about them. So, so maybe that's something that can help the branding and stuff, is just like incorporating those storytelling documentary pieces into these esports gamers' stories, and how they got into it, what their preparation is like, the challenges they face, and, you know, if there's any emotion in it too, like, you know, show that too. There are ways to do it. It's just a matter of whether, like, how they'll capitalize on it. I'm very curious to see. EA FIFA is changing its name. I wonder if this means they could be used by IOC in future. I think that the EA FIFA. So yeah, for those who don't know, EA Sports did not. It sounds like the way it's framed is that there was a failure to reach an agreement. So it wasn't that they didn't want to, but they're going to be EA Sports FC is now how they're going to be reframing it. So FIFA as we know it will no longer exist. FIFA instead, it's the same exact game, same exact everything. It just doesn't have the word FIFA. That's it. It's EA Sports FC now. Everything else is the exact same. I don't think that is going to have any effect. It's a name change. They've probably theory crafted all the different sales drops that'll happen from the lack of recognizability, and they'll market it, advertise it. They'll get back to where they were. I don't think that we have too much to worry about. As far as that's concerned,
there will be an initial dip for sure, but it's not going to last.
A1 Bangle brings up a point, and this is interesting. So asking, when we're talking, so this is in relation, I assume, Bangle, to us talking about the casual viewer watching a video game. Like why would they want to watch a video game? I would say the answer is the exact same as any sport. I would say, and that's not coming from a place that says, video games deserve a spot in the spotlight. It's more just saying, if I'm a casual viewer and I sit down to watch somebody play basketball at the professional level, I'm watching professionals play the game. They're supposed to be at the tippity top. So that's already going to bring entertainment value. So the first answer is entertainment. I like watching this. The second is education and knowledge. And that is when we watch, if I want to get good at a video game, I go watch somebody who's good at a video game, right? If I want to get better at Rocket League, I go get inspired by watching Jazer, Squishy, Rizzo. I go watch those people play games, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they did that. And then I can go into my training packs and practice what they're doing. But we watch to be entertained, but we also watch to see the top level of performance.
I mean, speedrunning is a big example of that too. There will be a bunch of games that I will watch speedrunners run. I have no investment in the game whatsoever, but because this person is so incredibly skilled at it, and especially with the AGDQ events, they explain what's going on.
Right.
It blows my mind how much people will really invest their time into something to do as good as they possibly can. And it's fun to watch too. The summoning salt videos are a really big example of how you can really hear the person's story and struggle and how they got through some of their challenges. There was, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been the Lego Star Wars one or something, where Summoning Salt actually had an interview with one of with the world record holder. And how he had to overcome this thing that's late in the run. You're talking a couple hours into a single run where most of the time you will lose the run because of how difficult the challenge is. A vast majority of the time you will lose the run. It's nuts.
That's speedrunning.
It's so fun to watch people overcome that barrier, regardless of whether or not you're invested in that game or not. I've never played whatever game it was, but it was so fun to watch that person achieve what they were passionate about.
Right. And this is I don't even speedrun games. I've speedrun a few just out of curiosity, and I'm awful at it. But for those who don't understand what speedrunning is, you're literally just trying to beat a game at a certain objective, whether it's every achievement, whether it's collecting everything, or whether it's just getting to the credit scene as fast as possible. That means you got people out here who are hunting pixel perfect glitches, pixel perfect reaction times, things that are required to get that little edge, that 0.001 second edge, to be the fastest person in the entire world to beat a game under a given condition. Speedrunning is wildly popular, and there is a speedrun community for almost every game in existence. There are obviously a lot of games that don't fit that bill, but there are so many, and there are communities of people who are constantly working on, can I hold left there? And does that make it go faster? If I push up against this wall, can I execute this slide faster? I watched Mario 64 speedruns.
Oh my word!
Siglemic in particular, and I would just I I don't like. I played the game once and beat it when it first came out on the Nintendo 64, and then I'm just sitting here watching them like, this is ludicrous what you're able to do. I don't even like. It's just entertaining to watch people do like. The whole point here is, I think what we don't want to sell short is the notion that because it's a video game, it lacks entertainment value. That's been disproven at this point. Like that's just not the case. The idea that's really cool is that video games are actually finding entertainment value, and in a lot of different ways. Like maybe speed running of a game that is popular enough, like maybe Mario 64 speedruns could find its way into the Olympics. That'd be fun.
I mean, like you have speed running races already. Like that's very much a big thing. Like you get a group of the 4 best runners in a particular game, and I say, okay, whoever race through the game, whoever completes it first wins. Like it's a very simple concept, but it's something that is very entertaining to watch because you get to watch all 4 of these people. Like sometimes when they start the game, like everything's exactly the same until one of them makes like a slightly different move, and then everything changes.
Yeah, it's very true.
But yeah, it is. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Something just kind of so Captain Zero is kind of throwing this in here. Video games allow non-athletes to compete in a given game that otherwise might be impossible since they trip while chewing gum. So aside from the idea that some people might not have like the dexterity or the physical acumen to participate in sports, what's more to kind of like take that and move it a little bit to show the value. This allows people in spaces on planet Earth who have no support for sports to hop online if they have the internet and compete. So competition can become something that someone can experience who otherwise is in a community of people who don't have the availability of a soccer league to train somebody, or basketball or tennis or hockey or volleyball or cricket or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But video games, they allow that. Like video games, you can go online and get your aim trainer, and you can become a very like high caliber FPS, a first person shooter player, without needing a network of people. So I think that's one of the biggest pluses of video game competition, video games in general, and esports. And it sounds like we're finally kind of catching up to this idea that we have really good players everywhere. They just haven't been noticed, and we're finally noticing them.
Yeah, actually, I want to bring up a point that A1 Bengal just brought up, where why not have an Olympic for non-athletic sports? Why merge the two? But then she follows up by saying, or is the actual Olympics a fading event? And this is an interesting thing to discuss. We are seeing a decline in viewership in a number of different types of broadcast events. You're seeing less people watch regular sports. I think you're seeing a decline in viewership in the Olympics, at least from what I've seen. I don't know that I have the exact numbers in front of me. But there's definitely been a decline in people who care about the Olympics. It's not like the Olympics aren't still a huge deal, but I think the demographic of people that like are really invested in what happens at the Olympics is declining.
That's interesting, yeah.
So if that is in fact the case, then when you merge something with an event, like let's just assume the Olympics is fading in viewership. They're not getting as many viewers as they do every, well, technically 2 years, but 4, depending on winter, summer, whatever. So let's assume that it is fading, and the Olympics is like, okay, we need something new because we've been doing the same thing for like over 100 years, right?
Right.
So esports comes along. It's finally at the point where it's a very viable option, to where it has the viewership and the amount of participants that make it a watchable event. That's that has the investment, that has the branding behind it. I don't think we could have done this even 4 years ago. So maybe this is, we probably could have 4 years ago, but I digress. Yeah. We're at the point where if again, assuming the Olympics is a fading event, is this something that the Olympics is trying to do to bring it back on the rise so that you can incorporate all generational aspects into the Olympics? So, you know, a lot of new Gen Zers or like the new generation doesn't really care about sports as much as traditionally you did, 30 years ago?
So this is interesting.
It's just like a lot of thought experiment. I don't have like any like answers or something. It's just like a very interesting thought.
Yeah, but consumption of content has risen.
Oh yeah.
So what's interesting is if we're looking at, I think what is happening with the information digital age is we're actually just seeing a repurpose of the attention economy. The attention economy, like personally, I don't watch a lot of NBA basketball because I don't find it entertaining anymore. I used to. I don't now because for me, it just seems like an offense game and then defense kind of happens. So that's just obviously my personal opinion and personal view. But I will tune into NBA highlights on YouTube. I will consume a huge dunk that happened in the game. I will look at those content bits. And I think that's what other people are doing for the Olympics, for all these, whatever it is. They are looking at the content they can consume after the fact without needing to be at the live event, where if we go back 30 years, if you missed the live event, you better catch the news because that's where you're going to find the highlights. Otherwise, you missed it. There's not a YouTube.
If I'm not at my TV at 4:00, I'm not watching Arthur, you know?
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Like that is.
And we're in a day and age like we have Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, all the stuff.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think. Because clearly, like, if you just walk outside, you can see that we are consuming content. Everybody, we are looking at the phone. We are looking at the screen. We are we are on our laptop. We are consuming more content now than we ever have. So numbers going down on broadcast, that doesn't make sense. What does make sense, though, if you're like, wait, but everybody's consuming content. What are they consuming? They're consuming all the truncated, the compressed content. They don't want to watch 5 hours of the Olympics opening ceremony, for example. They want to see a 1 minute synopsis of what it was. So because we are like, I think the human brain is just smarter and more capable than people give it credit for. And we don't realize how fast we can consume and understand content without context. So we just say that you can see, you have a 5 hour ceremony. And, it's not actually 5 hours, but you have a 5 hour ceremony, and then you can break that. Let's say it's an hour ceremony. You can take that hour, you can put it into 1 minute, and somebody can feel, whether right or wrong, it's just a neutral statement. They can feel like they got the impression of as if they had watched for the hour. And then they can consume 60 versions in an hour of understanding different places and ideas and highlights and moves and plays and scores and standings and rankings and judgments and criticisms and analytics. And they can look at all of that in an hour. And if they had sat there and watched the entire opening ceremony for an hour, there's this consumption FOMO.
Yeah.
It's just to say that, like, I think that I don't think it's necessarily, it's just we're consuming differently. We're just consuming differently now.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think Captain Zero nails that part on the head, but he said, like, we have a shorter attention span these days, and that's where the trend is heading. Like, if it's exactly what you said. Like, if you're not getting all the content that you can consume in that period of time, then you feel like you're not getting the value that you want out of the content you're consuming.
Yeah.
So, like... And I just want to go back a little bit because Bengal pointed out, and I double-checked this to be 100% sure, and she's right. The Tokyo Olympic Games opening ceremony drew 16.7 million viewers on NBC, which was the smallest U.S. television audience for the event in the modern viewership era.
Wow.
So...
Well,
I think that's telling enough.
And what would we say, like, if we look at that and we were to, like, go into the demographics, and obviously this is complete hypothesis and assumption, but I would assume that the demographics of that 16 million are largely like 40 plus, 30 plus.
Yeah,
like,
I bet
that like the Gen Y and Z, like X is probably still represented pretty well, but generations Y and Z probably are like, why you want me to sit here and watch what? Like I don't like just as a
I don't
general
know how
idea,
they would track that, but I would imagine that you're right.
Dude, they know everything, man. Come on.
Yeah,
They, right? The elusive they, whoever they are, they got those guys. I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, I don't like the idea here is I don't want, personally for me, I don't think that we should ever look at the changing atmosphere of things and say that this is wrong. It's more, it just is. Like things are. And so what's happening is we aren't doing things the traditional way as often as we used to, because the younger generations are consuming content faster than we're used to. Like we are consuming content faster than we're used to. Everybody is having to catch up to consuming content faster with a potato chip attention span. It just is the way that it is, and it's been shown to work. Psychology evolves, and so our psychology as a modern society is also evolving.
Yep. So yeah, our attention spans are shorter, and technology is moving faster in a faster rate than it ever has before.
Right.
Like you think of how much the internet has progressed in the past 30 years. Like what other type of technology in all of human history has progressed that fast to be able to connect the entire world in the way that we have now? That didn't exist.
Right.
Like that, and we're still, coming up with new and innovative ways to just be as a world, really. And I think everybody kind of has, there's not everybody, there's like a lot of people that have reservations on AI, but that's not going to stop. I think we've kind of all come to the acceptance point of like AI is not going to stop being developed.
Jeez, dude, I think we almost have to do it. We have to do an episode on AI.
We have to do an episode on AI.
I'm thinking about it because it's like
I actually we'll talk off stream, but I actually might have somebody we could pull in. I have a connection that works in AI healthcare.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and actually, Fox's Mage brings up a brilliant point here. Waiting to see a show each week has instead become, I'll wait until they release the season and binge it.
Yeah.
So this is,
I've done that.
I think, so if we're looking at, and then Captain Zero actually said as well, like the idea of the fastest dopamine hit. So we're in a place where the term dopamine detox is real because of just how, like, anyway, if just wait till the next episode of the podcast too. We got into a really good conversation with our guest, and
I can't wait for you guys to hear that one.
And we actually talk about this. We talk about the idea of gamifying certain things, what that looks like. But we've definitely, I think we're all kind of like it's instant gratification society. So if I want to feel think about when you play a video game and a little, light comes on or a little thing and +5 experience for just whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Makes you feel good, doesn't it? It's just like, yeah, that was awesome. And then think about playing a game that doesn't do any of that. Those games don't exist anymore, and there's a reason, or they don't exist as often anymore. And there's typically a reason for that. People are going for those little hits. They want to entice you to keep going in the games and stuff.
Yeah. That's why it's harder and harder to bring your kids to sporting events, like especially baseball, because you go to, I don't want to just knock on baseball in particular, but it used to be the American pastime where father and son, you just go to a baseball game, you have a good time, have a hot dog and maybe a pretzel and you just watch a game together. But nowadays you have to wait for stuff to happen, and we're living in a day and age where people don't want to, they feel like they're missing out on something, or they get sometimes anxious if they are waiting for something because they feel like something has to be happening right now.
It's an unprecedented time because we have people, we have younger generations, including myself, on that edge, at least, who, I'm 35 and I remember, I don't remember exactly when the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, came out, but I basically grew up with video game consoles coming out, and that didn't happen before. Now let's say, what if you grew up with the internet, which I didn't do, right? Which a lot of us didn't do.
Right.
Like, how would that change the way in which you perceive information? It would radicalize it. It would. It's. We can't even fathom what it would be like to, you know. So it's just to say, like, I don't think there's actually, like, once again, I think it's a neutral idea of how things are, and we should be very willing to acknowledge a changing and growing, evolving society in that way, and just say, okay, well, what's next? And then be sure to be mindful of decisions we make. Don't get caught going down an instant gratification hole that, you know, at the end of the day, you're like, oh man, you know, I don't know. I guess we all do that though. Maybe that's a part of it, but it's just it's a new wild age.
I guess I guess it just goes back to the old idea of like too much of anything is bad.
What about everything in moderation? Including moderation?
We'll dissect that another time.
Yeah, I think Dreezy's got to hop on, doesn't he? I think we're
pretty well. Let me check. I will run the clock as long as I can.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's something that a friend of mine used to say all the time, and there's something about it that kind of like I kind of understand. Like, everything in moderation is saying that you should never do something too much, but isn't a part of the human experience doing something too much? Like going in on something. Like, there's something about that is innately human for our ability to hyper focus and dive deep and go down a rabbit hole.
I think so. Like, I think there's a lot of experimentation that we, you know, I mean, what is discovery without experimentation? Right. Like, you can't, like, you have to be able to try so many different things in order to find what you could try one thing 1,000 times, or not one thing 1,000 times. You could try 1,000 different things and find one thing that works. But you know, that one thing could change the world. You know, you just never exactly know. So it's like, you know, I think there's still moderation in that. Because there's so much nuance that I can't tackle in just like a minute. But I think when let me just go back to like the dopamine thing, because I think that was actually a relevant topic. So like, dopamine in and of itself is not a bad thing, right? Like, it's supposed to train your brain to have like a happy, pleasurable experience with something. And it can also lead to an addictive personality. So it's like, it's a good thing in moderation, but if you let that be your driving force and you let it control you in some sort of way, then it becomes unhealthy.
Right.
So,
but it's like, if it's attaching, this is tough. Like, we are biological creatures. This is our psychology we're talking about, and a lot of this can happen subconsciously without any acknowledgement of what's going on. You don't realize it until like when I deleted Facebook, when I got off Facebook, this was 2.5 years ago, I think. The amount of times I was pushing the spot where the Facebook icon used to be to open it without knowing I was doing it. Like, I would just open my phone and push the spot. Scared me to death so hard that I had to have like a come to Jesus moment. I had to just be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that that's how often I'm just opening my phone and clicking on Facebook. But those kind of like analyzing those kind of things and kind of saying, okay, is this something I want to be clicking? Is something I want to be doing, and trying to like fight against your own willpower? Yeah, I think that's why. I mean, yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah, you have to retrain your brain, and that's hard. Like, changing neurological pathways is not a fun thing to do. But you know, it does show how malleable the human brain is. It also shows how stubborn it is.
right. Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of both all tied up, but it's to say that, you know, the amount of improvement, growth, and evolution that we can all go through in our own psychologies, as far as video games are concerned, as far as understanding entertainment is concerned, as far as content creation or streaming is concerned, like, all of these things, the brain is such a powerful tool to engage and grow in these spaces. That also means that it is a dangerous tool, and we would do well to like be mindful of the decisions we're making, but also not afraid. And I think that's the big thing, is don't let the idea of what could happen cause a fear of wanting to do something. I think it's important to still do things.
And I think with esports and video games, I think that's especially true because, people can use it as an escape, but it could also be used as a distraction from what you should be doing.
Right.
So that I think is especially hard to moderate because like if you are doing some sort of content in the video game space in that realm, then you have to be incredibly mindful of how you're moderating yourself. Like, are you not, I don't want to say, are you enjoying the games too much? Because like hopefully you do enjoy the games you're playing. Like that's kind of what they're designed to do. But is it becoming an addiction to where if you're not playing it, then you're having withdrawals and you feel like you need to be playing it? I think that's the part that's really, really hard to be mindful of, and something that can turn into something incredibly unhealthy and detrimental very quickly. But yeah, then again, I guess that's what accountability is for, right? That's why you have people in your life that can hold you accountable in those types of ways. Having people that love you so that you can love that so that they can love you is huge. Never underestimate that.
Dude, it's just good stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's just great. The power of love, yes.
Stuff, yeah. How are we looking? What are we?
I think we're looking pretty good.
Is the Drees coming on?
I don't know. He hasn't responded to me, and now I'm seeing this connecting. I'm seeing this connecting to chat thing, and I'm not sure why that's showing up. I bet you Dreezy's like trying to start streaming.
Yeah, if he's like trying to start. Yeah. That'd be so funny. Okay, well, at the very least, we could say
we are a little over time.
So this is hi everyone. Thank you for joining us for this. We will be doing this 4 episodes now. So when the next episode comes out, you can expect the next week after that doing a QA about it. And like I said before, I have submitted the podcast to all the main places where you get podcasts. It's out there now. So we will hopefully, it takes apparently, there's processing that has to happen. A lot of these, suggest like 1 to 2 weeks for them to actually get approved and actually get posted onto Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Anchor are the big 4. So just, mind your P's and Q's until then. But I'm really excited for everybody to be able to listen to the awesome conversations we've been having and to consume that content. And thank you for being here.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm sorry. The inflection. I ended that sentence with an inflection that said I was going to say something else,
it's not.
I think I set you up for disaster.
Indirectly passing it to me.
That was bad. It was a fun handoff, but a poor one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll take fun.
Yeah.
We make something out of nothing.
True. Yeah. I want to see AI. I know Rocket League kind of does this already, but I think it'd be cool to see programmed bots against each other, in video games. So, I would like to program this bot to, in Rocket League, be really good in the air, but it'll be bad on the ground. And then they go against a bot somebody's programmed who's really good at playing the ground, but really bad in the air, that kind of stuff. And then it becomes almost a programming competition, a way to get competitive esports at the programming level. I think that's kind of a cool way to you could do that for anything. Do it for League of Legends. You have to program your mid lane and program your jungler to choose to do certain things at certain times, like a human brain, and then it just becomes a programming face off.
Yeah,
it just sounds intriguing.
Yeah, really intriguing. Oh my goodness, the recording just went haywire for a second. We're good now.
Oh, good. No, that's amazing. Good.
Okay, and Twitch chat just reconnected. I was disconnected for a second there. I think that's why the recording freaked out a bit.
When are we getting over it in the Olympics?
Oh my goodness, don't do that.
Can we get getting over it in the Olympics?
No.
Fight me. I mean, come on. Getting over it is the ultimate. Just there is not. I mean, just do it. Just get in the Olympics. You got Gran Turismo and Tic Tac Bow. Getting over it in there. People will understand. It's a man in a cauldron with a hammer. What is not to understand about this? And he needs to climb.
There is that.
That's a very clear.
They finally broke the 1 minute barrier. Did you see that?
I saw. I am. It blows me away what is possible as far as speedrunning in that game. It's kind of like this is ridiculous. You want to talk about min-maxing? My goodness.
Man. Like that's
crazy. It's wild. It's wild.
So good. All right. Well, thank you everyone for showing up today. This was a very, very fun discussion. I'm looking forward to doing this more often, like as a part of a regular live routine, especially after we do our pre-recorded sessions with guests and whatnot. But just being able to have this Q&A with you guys, have discussions, and just hear what you guys have to say too, and be a part of the discussion. Like this is what we're looking for. This is what we want. We want to be able to hear from you guys. And just talk with you about all of this stuff, because we all run through challenges on a day-to-day basis. We all have successes that we want to celebrate with each other, and we're all in this together. And I think that's the biggest thing. Was there a dopamine hit on this stream? Yes.
Okay, I'm going to write on a piece of paper. I'm writing on a piece of paper plus 5 XP, and then every 10 minutes, I'm just going to hold it up on the screen. You did it. Ding, and I'll make a little ding noise, and then it's like, there you go. That's beautiful. We'll make it happen. Okay, are we leaving? Do we just walk out now?
I guess we just say bye.
It's like you're standing at the front door of a party, and you want to leave, but you don't know, and then you just do.
Yeah, we didn't figure out exactly how to end this. We never talked about it.
No, we didn't.
How do we end the stream? Because I have 2 recordings to stop and a stream to stop. Yeah.
You literally have the power, and I have to sit here at your whim.
Yeah,
I'm just
you do.
yeah. Oh.
Even though you could turn off your OBS at any point, but
I could, but that seems like No, you're right. No, you're right. I can literally just leave the call and close OBS and
I guess
hang out with my dog.
Question. Spoo asks, what level of watcher did I get to? Novice. All right, here we go. All right, thank you guys so much for watching.
5.6.
5.6.
Which is novice, yeah.
Yeah, which is not. That's novice level.
It's actually really bad. It's really bad. It's you are like under the desk gum scraper. Like you got some work to do, man.
I think you have to hit 7.2 before you hit intermediate. Is that right?
7.2 is intermediate. You get out into the hallway so you can clean lockers. But it's right now you are in the classrooms just picking gum. So good luck, man.
And what you have to get to 45 or something like that to get SpongeBob Hall Monitor. So
true.
There you go.
A lot of work to do.
Yep, so much. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. We love you all, and we will see you next time. Check out the podcast, follow on all the socials and everything, and all that good stuff. Bye-bye!